long time ago, hazy days of the past, footpaths through the snow where the mold had been cast. I kept trembling inside as I went stumbling through the glass. Through these noises I've waited, neck deep in the sound. Was it you I heard singing before I started to drown? When they pulled me to shore, there was no trace of you to be found. I see your face in the window, in recognition I stare. The apple of my eye is drawing me there. I know there's a purpose, I'm awake and aware. It was a hot August evening when he came to her house. Sheets were spread on the screen porch where the apples dried out. Take me back where it started, let my thoughts wander about. Through the dark foggy thickets we made our path to the clear. And though we're pulled separate ways, I'll keep holding you near. I won't leave you behind, and we'll escape out of here. Nothing seems special about it, but it comes to my memory so clear. Just another casual moment, so why do I hold it so dear? Was there some great puzzle laid before me? Was this some special piece set aside, waiting for the picture that was forming to get fit in at a right place inside? The dressing room is tiny, the air backstage is cold. Get ready for excitement, it's about to There were damsels and dragons in that picture, faces hidden to conceal true desires. There were sunbeams penetrating the forest, there were mist on the paths to the fire. And I'm drawn back to that flame I witnessed in dreams that I long to share. I'm sure you get my meaning, after all, you were there. The dressing room is tiny, the air backstage is cold. Get ready for excitement, it's about to unfold.
But first, let me just ask you though, like, how has this experience been so far? Did you enjoy playing in here? And
This store has been a mainstay of mine for years.
everybody knows you too. Like I said that Ryan's coming, and they were like, oh, like literally everybody
That's
did that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody here is just awesome. I've known a lot of people, and it's just been a great place to pursue music as a whole. And
For sure.
I've taken voice lessons. I've bought several instruments. I just enjoy this place thoroughly.
Yeah. Me too. I taught drum lessons here, and then whenever we had the opportunity to like start the Spicers Live thing, I was like, I'm in. Like, I have to be involved in that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been really cool too. We've had a bunch of different people, and the whole point is to get like local artists. And we were talking about this earlier, to have like just a platform, like somewhere to do something like this, and what better place than in this room.
I think it's great that local artists and artists in general have the opportunity to pursue their music, because music is just self-expression.
For sure.
It's just a great way to introspect upon yourself and write melodies that sing true to your heart, So, and it's great to have people around who support you and your art, and it's just, and you support them in return in their endeavors, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like everybody's kind of on the same page about that around here too. Let me ask you this though, because you're saying, like music is the expression or whatever. And I listened to a lot of your music to get prepared for this, because I really wanted to like be able to ask you some like intelligent questions, but this is probably kind of a dumb one maybe. But it's obviously you're inspired by like the psychedelia movement and stuff. How did you get into that originally? Where did that come from?
Well, my parents were my dad's born in 1959. My mom's born in 61. They grew up in the mid 70s.
Okay.
That was some of the best eras of music. And my dad, he will deny it, but he was a massive Beatles fan.
Okay.
And he just showed me the Beatles when I was 10 years old, and they were my first love in music. Well, technically, I was 5 years old, and I was already singing Paul McCartney, Band on the Run. And
yeah, you said you started recording like really early, and
oh yeah,
and doing music stuff like really early as a child.
Exactly. Well, I started out with music with something really weird, the Titanic.
Well, like the movie?
No. The ship itself. I was enamored with the story when I was very young, and I was also interested in folk music, Bob Dylan. And I was like, I'm going to write a song about the Titanic. And then I realized, oh my God, there's been a million songs written about that. It's essentially a cliche. It's been romanticized and over-dramatized a million times. Let me just write a song about a ship. And then I said, Uncle Randall, I'm talking to my uncle. And we're just sitting in the garage piddling around, and he says, after I told him I wanted to write a song about a ship, he said, well, Gordon Lightfoot wrote a song called Wreck of the Evan Fitzgerald.
Yeah, right.
And I said, who's Gordon Lightfoot?
And there you go, and from there it takes off, I'm sure.
And I saw Gordon Lightfoot playing a guitar with 12 pegs on it, like 12 tuning pegs. And I was just like, what is that? But I was so enamored with its sound as well that I decided to get into 12-string guitars.
Yeah, right.
And the first song I wrote was basically a Southern fried, Southern Gothic version of Wreck of the Evan Fitzgerald and the story of the Titanic, about a Southern ocean liner during the 1800s, steamboat, that sank. And it was called Vindia. And that was the first song I wrote. It's been through a million different variations. And after I got over my obsession with steamships, I just started writing about other things.
So that was one of the things that I was definitely wanting to ask you about, is that it seems like the topics of your songs jump around from sort of, they're like hyper specific, and then for example, like Smilodon, for example, you're telling like a specific story and what's going on there.
Okay.
Or Plastered Dinosaurs, for example, too. I feel like there's kind of like a very specific thing going on, and then you're telling a story about very folksy, maybe? What do you think? Well,
the first one, Smilodon, I wrote, it was really inspired by the Doors album An American Prayer, which was Jim Morrison reciting poetry. Plaster Dinosaurs, my dad wrote those lyrics. He writes a lot of my lyrics.
Okay. And
I told him to kind of write about that. And it turned out being this Beatlesque thing with some weird Syd Barrett-esque kind of inspired melodies and stuff. And Pleistocene Dreams was, once again, an enamorment or a
that's not the right word. Infatuation of mine. It was with prehistory.
Yeah, because you're like super detailed about what's going on in those songs. You're like explaining, place, time, and those sort of things very specifically.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. And that was a concept album, my first record.
Yeah, for sure.
I've come to, kind of, in some respects, I wish I could have done better on that record because I was really in a rush to finish it because I was so excited to have my first album out. Mm-hmm. And I was recording some things to a Tascam MS-16 reel-to-reel, and I didn't use a metronome for some songs. And I regret that because the drums were you could tell I was struggling to keep up with just my rhythm guitar track.
Mm-hmm. But part of that, to me, when I was listening to it, there's a charm in that.
Oh, yeah.
And so in today's like modern age where everything is like so snapped to the grid and quantized and every single guitar lick is perfect and every snare drum sounds the same and all of that sort of stuff, to hear something so organic like that is like completely on the other side of what is on the radio. But it's comforting in a way because I feel like we're maybe the pendulum swinging a little bit back away from the roboticness of everything. I could be just making that up, but your music, for example, is definitely on the other side, and I like hearing it because it's real.
That's the thing. I enjoy reality and authenticity in music. My next record, Zodiac, which is coming out here in a couple months or around that time, the two songs I played for you all, those are going on the record. I've tried to be a lot more specific with this record because I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't quantized the drums, but I made sure to lock in with the metronome.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm using digital for this record simply because of its capabilities, Logic Pro. But there's a fine line when I've re-recorded drum takes times and times again, and it's taken a year and a half to do this record. Mm-hmm. But I'm finally at the point now where I'm just like, okay, there's only so much I can do. I mean, it's
you can tweak forever,
I can tweak forever.
Yeah.
And is it worth it? I mean, like,
well, because some of it, there's like the feel of the very first take. I personally feel like I'm always kind of trying to chase that a little bit, and I wonder if it's like maybe the adrenaline rush that I get when I finally hear the idea, and I'm like tricking myself, like the first one was the best, or wasn't it the best? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's hard that way.
Yes, like when I'm recording vocals and somebody else is coaching me on my vocals in the control room or whatever, I'm kind of like, well, the first take was when I was trying to be myself. Mm-hmm. So, and then they're like, maybe you could be more expressive during the chorus, or you could be more like this, and I'm like,
there's a thing that producers say. It's called demo-itis. A band. Have you ever heard that phrase? A band?
Oh yes, it's like the demo is like getting down.
It's what you heard. Like it's what you got used to listening to.
It's like John Lennon's demos that they used for the Beatles' last recordings on the Anthology series. Mm-hmm. They may be him banging on a piano in his apartment and him singing kind of, but they have this beautiful charm to them.
Yeah. And that's what you've listened to so much also that by the time maybe you get into the studio and you're retracking or something, it's like, the demo is better. I don't know.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, I'm going to switch gears here.
Okay.
And ask you sort of about, we mentioned that some of your songs are definitely in the land of psychedelia, right? Like very much psychedelic.
Yes.
In the best of ways. But then some stuff seems like very personal and intimate and more like, straightforward, not trying to, not full of effects or anything. I don't mean it necessarily that way, but it just seems, kind of personal in a way. So what's your take on that?
I mean, like, a lot of my things, it depends. I mean, I wouldn't want to list every song because my dad has written so many lyrics, but songs like Turn Back Time, Quiet Please, Bloodshot, I wrote those songs, and a lot of stuff my cousin Andrew Bloom has written, and he did a song called When the Universe Goes Bang. He sang the vocals on it, and Death of an Englishman off my second album. And When the Universe Goes Bang, I was trying my best to sound like the Doors. I was going for that Riders on the Storm, when the music's over kind of feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Even with the fuzz tone guitar. And then for Death of an Englishman, I was going for a more Baroque pop edge with a harpsichord and maybe like a swingy kind of jazzy feel. And my cousin did a really good job on the vocals. He's a great singer. I mean, I love having collaborations with others on my recordings. And David Jones, he played trumpet and sang vocals on my song Get Back Up. That's just more of a funky number, which was inspired by artists like Neil Francis, who is a new 70s inspired artist on the scene in indie rock. So
for a song like Move On specifically, kind of walk me through that one and like, where's that come? Because when I'm listening to just like, if I shuffled your music, you know, and you're getting some like, you're definitely getting, you know, the Doors, and you got some Riders on the Storm. There's tambourines going everywhere, some stuff super psychedelic. What's the one? I'm going through a nuclear. What's that called?
God.
But like, you get my point is that if I shuffled your music, it's very much all over the place, and then you have a song like Move On that's
Move On was
very
personal.
clear, yeah, very personal, very clear and intimate like that.
I wrote that song immediately after I heard the Beatles' Now and Then, their last single.
Okay.
I was really trying to go for that John Lennon kind of confessional, I don't want to lose you, you're my friend kind of thing. And I went through a friendship breakup a while back, and I just needed to have some closure and say sorry for anything that happened on my end. And I wrote it. And
it's personal and it translates that way too.
Yeah.
So
I've tried a lot more to write a lot more personal, you know, when I write lyrics, because I like confessional kind of lyrics, kind of like Elliott Smith or even Phoebe Bridgers or somebody like that.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess I mentioned putting it on shuffle, and I guess, you know, it's jumping back and forth in all these places. But one thing that I did want to ask is for Saga City, right?
Sagacity, yes.
Sagacity, is that what
Sagacity, yeah, it's Wisdom. That album is not wise
I
at all.
did not have sagacity in asking you this question then.
You were fine. You were
Almost got it. But I was going to say that it seems like there's like almost like a Hunter S. Thompson Gonzo-esque like overtone to this. Like it could be the alternate soundtrack to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas or something. Because it takes you on that like Midwestern desert driving with a, you know, convertible top-down feeling or something.
Oh,
if that makes
yeah.
sense.
That is the weirdest album I've ever made. I mean, like,
sure.
The first track, New Clothes, there is one song that inspired that, and people say it sounds like Syd Barrett, but it came from the most unusual place. Believer by the Imagine Dragons.
I would never have guessed that. I mean, there's no way to have guessed that.
Yeah, I mean, that boom, da doom, boom, boom, that was that bombastic intro to Believer. And then the absolutely truly random song. Oh man, that's a nutty one.
Yeah, it is, but it's like in my head I was like going through that movie when things get weird and then things are calm for a little bit and then they get just off the wall.
And then you have Prophet Toad and
yeah.
That was just my attempt on Bob Dylan and Lou Reed at the same time.
What is your workflow like when you get into the studio? Like, what do you always do guitar first, or is it just kind of random?
It's about as disorganized as, I don't know, a poorly made calzone.
Yeah, like you're just like doing whatever comes natural or that you feel like you need to do in the moment.
Oh yeah, like essentially I usually start with acoustic guitar. I know a lot of people will say you got to start with drums. I don't see the point in that. I mean, unless you have all the bars down and what you got going, following drums is kind of difficult because you don't have the drums are just to provide the beat and maybe some fills here and there, as I see them at least. But I usually lay down rhythm guitar first because it's the bassist, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, not the bassist like in terms of a bass player, but
sure, yeah.
A bassist. And then I lay down drums, and then bass, and then keyboards, and then your more melodic lead instruments, and then vocals.
Do you tend to write in the studio? You know what I mean? Like write when the red light's on, as opposed to like having everything written out in your head, or do you?
Everything I hear kind of comes to me in my head at random points. I kind of just have this random idea, and I hit my voice memos on my phone, and I play it. And then after I play back the voice memos, like, oh, I can hear the drums going this way.
Yeah, okay.
And then I get in the studio, And sometimes it's exactly like I heard it in my head. And other times it's not really what I expected it to be, but I slowly try to accept it for what it is, because you can't always get what you want, as the Rolling Stones say.
Yeah. Songs do what they're going to do.
They're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes the audio you hear in your head is so blurry or so disorganized that you can't really tell what it's going to sound like until you get in the studio and you're like, is this it?
Right. And you can struggle. You can fight all day to try to make it something that it isn't, and it just you gotta let it breathe sometimes.
Yes, you've got to let it be what it is. You know.
Sure. So you did 2 songs for us.
Yes.
So the first one, Resurrection. Reunion. Ah, it's close. Gosh, that's twice that
You're fine.
Memory's failing me. Reunion. That one definitely is intimate, and then the other was 1967. And that one's a little bit more upbeat and with more energy and that sort of thing. So walk me through those 2 songs, and then let's talk about your new release.
Of course. For Reunion, I wrote that one, the music for it, in 15 minutes. I came up with that first little intro chord progression while I was sitting in my studio. And I was so excited about it because I just loved it. While that recording was rolling, I was rolling in Logic Pro, I wrote the chorus. So it was one take on the acoustic guitar, and then I built everything from there. And then the theme I had in mind at first was, well, the first lyrics on my end were a long time ago when the past was the past, which might not make sense, but it was going to be about this older couple who have gotten to a point in their life where they're just like, we're living in the past, we kind of stuck where we are and we don't know what we're going to do with ourselves. My dad took that and he made it into nostalgia of back to I guess in his opinion, it might be a better time when things were simpler and more. I mean, he'd have to tell you. That's the way I interpret it. So
sure, yeah,
it's very nostalgic.
Yeah, I got that vibe. I was trying to. You definitely get the picture of like 2 beings, whether it's like people or entities or whatever. Like
he was basing
going through a journey together.
He was basing it on some of his family members, from what I can tell, and they were growing up. And they were getting to know each other in the late 40s, early 50s when Hank Williams was popular and all these artists. And rock and roll was just about to get started. It was a much different time, you know.
Sure, yeah, like the future's still being written, sort of.
The future is still being written, and so much has changed since the 1950s, 60s, 70s, on and on, you know.
I watched Terminator yesterday, so I guess that's where that line came from. Walk me through your second song, 1967.
Once again, 1967 was a complete nod to the 60s psychedelia.
Yeah, okay.
When I originally wrote it, on the single version and the album version, there's this really hip-hoppy sounding drum intro, and I took off all the highs and the lows off of it to make it sound like a lo-fi drum machine. I was originally intending it to be a lot more poppy. There was a song by Emil Hirsch, the actor who starred in Into the Wild, called My Favorite Motive. And it's very kind of Phoenix-like, the band, pop band Phoenix, kind of indie pop, or Group Love, their song Tongue Tied. And I wanted to go for like this, I don't know, this song by Madonna, of all people, called Beautiful Stranger, that was in the soundtrack to Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. I was going for that psychedelic pop feel.
Yeah, definitely.
And when I remember I was talking to you about earlier, when it gets in the studio and it becomes a certain way.
Yeah.
It became pure psychedelic rock, and I just accepted it for what it was.
Right.
So, but I left that really poppy sounding lo-fi drum machine intro in it just for effect. You know, I didn't want to just start it out with straightforward. I wanted it to have that quirky intro to it.
Both of these are on a new album. How many songs are going to be on the album? When's it coming out?
It's tentative currently, but it'll be out probably November, around that time.
So a couple months, yeah.
The album's called Zodiac. And it's going to have 12 songs because 12 signs of the Zodiac. I was going to be lazy and go with 10, but my friends were like, dude, you got to have 12 songs. Come on now. Come on.
Yeah, the internet would not like that if you only...
Oh, the internet would be like, you know.
We're here with Ron Downing, Spicer's live Acoustic Room Sessions in the beautiful Acoustic Room. Spicer's in Auburn, Alabama.
Ryan.
Thank you so much for coming in, playing. It's really been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Great
yeah.
to see you.
Thanks for
Great to see you,
coming.
Rob. Peace.